I have a question.
Yeah.
Karel, AMP grazing, what AMP mean, AMP?
Adaptive multi-paddock grazing.
Jason, I don't know if I missed this, because I was fencing, but, so, the people with the cattle are paying you to graze.
Yes.
Is the farmer with the land getting the nutrients, they're not paying you,
No, no.
but then they're not paying the count. What happened to the dairy bit then?
Well, so our program, the county is helping to offset some of the cost that they would have gotten for selling the corn.
Okay, got it.
Because that's kind of the linchpin of the whole deal, if you will, is, you know, there's not enough money in grazing for everybody to get paid. So our goal is that over the course of a couple of years, we can lower that payment to the farmers. But I think there's always this perception that there's more money there than there is, and there really isn't that much money in grazing. So to kind of let the farmers see a benefit, and then hopefully kind of have them see the benefit and forego some payment. But we started it with the idea that, look, we're going to have to pay them some, because it's just really hard to ask them to grow a crop and then only sell half of it. It just doesn't really fly very well. So.
Gene.
Yeah, so what do you charge per cow-calf pair for your grazing program?
You know, it varies based on the situation, but usually like 65 cents a day to $1 a day. So I mean, it's not, you know, it's not a lot of money. You need to run it pretty efficiently. And we're just doing cow-calf, so we're not taking any animals to, you know, slaughter. We're just doing cow-calf.
Yes.
So I know that a lot of soil numbers vary because of animals. Have you seen that, you know, having a consistent practice means that your soil numbers are consistent, or do you find that that varies depending on the year? For anyone.
Soil testing
Yeah.
numbers?
I think that we've seen an overall upward trend, but a fair amount of variability from year to year. We have done some interplanted some cover crops into our pastures, and every year we did that, we had a lot more diversity and a lot more soil microbes and whatnot. And those years, it always jumped up. But then it would go down a little bit the next year, but the trend is continuing up.
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of
Yeah.
soil testing in
Okay.
our pasture. We're doing for a crop field, for this,
Okay.
it's for this soil testing thing. So I don't have those numbers.
Well, I was just gonna say, on ours, you know, on places where we rotational graze, that I didn't really talk about, we have seen improvements in those numbers, but they still fluctuate quite a lot. On the areas that we just come in and graze in other cropland, we haven't seen much change, but we don't have, I think, enough years in place to start seeing that effect. So I think it's a little bit jury's out.
I think there's a threshold, you know, you have to consistently do what's good for the land for a series of years, and sometimes you can hit a threshold where the microbial community in your soil starts to thrive, you know, which is going to be good by keeping it in perennial crops anyway, but then you add the grazing in because, you know, with all the composting, cows are essentially compost piles on legs, but they have the right environment 365 days of the year versus your compost pile in the winter here and the microbes kind of all die out, but they're not dead in the rumen. So you can, you know, there's just this whole getting the biology started, spreading that manure around by concentrating where the manure gets put down and, you know, then feeding the microbes. I think you do eventually hit some thresholds where the whole system just starts working.
Okay, Todd, did you have a question?
Yeah, how many cows per acre for each of your situations, I guess? And then like how big are your grazing areas per how many cows, I guess?
Yeah.
It varies, I assume.
It kind of does. It's always a hard number, you know. For us, it is, at least with the dairy. I'm sure we could break it down and try to figure it out. But I mean, we graze some of our paddocks will graze four times a year, 5 times a year, and some are like 2 or 3. So it just depends on the type of pasture almost, and if you can irrigate it, you know. So we also have we have to buy in hay, so it's hard for me to like deduce how much dry matter we have total, because we buy it in, and we have horses.
So how many cows do you have? Just
We have like 15, 20 cows, 25 bovine
Yeah.
cows, like calves and heifers, and
Mhm.
we're still buying a little hay for them, you know, so
Yeah.
I guess I have those numbers though, how much we produce on the farm, but it's probably hard to say. Depends on the pasture.
Yeah, and probably, we don't do mob grazing really, but we might hit 50 cows per acre when they're in there, but, you know, they're only in there a short period of time.
Jason, what do you shoot for?
Well, yeah, it's a really hard question because it varies so much. I know like on crop residues, we typically are shooting for like 1.5 cows per acre, but they're in there for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
So, when we run through on some of the rotational grazing, we're usually in for like 3 days, 5 days in a paddock, and I don't know, we'll maybe put, it just varies so much. I'd say we put 50 in like 3 or 4 acres, but that, you know, that number goes.
Like on corn stalks, are you dividing up the field, or are you just letting them go on the whole?
We don't divide up corn stalks because, you know, a lot of the basic principles of rotational, as these guys both said, is really about resting. And so if you got a corn stalk, it's dead. You can rest it all you want, it's still dead. And so we find, in the winter, the water is a lot harder. So we just put the water in one spot and the cows find all the corn stalks. And if you got the right number for the right days, they get them all pretty evenly. In an ideal world, you'd probably move the water around. You wouldn't really need to fence them, but you'd move the water.
Mhm.
But when you're trying to keep, you know, water thawed in the middle of the winter, we just end up with one spot because that's just how it works.
Okay, two more questions and then we'll be done. Okay, Jess.
How long did it take you to like learn how to do it right? Because it seems like you guys have your system down, but it probably wasn't like that at the beginning. Maybe like overgrazed, undergrazed. Like, how long did it take you? Or are you still figuring it out?
I think there's always learning, you know, and in every pasture and irrigation, and you know, it's different. You know, like I said, I'm grazing across the country, so it's really different, you know. Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is you get feedback. You get feedback from your cows. You get feedback, you know, like with the milk in our case, or the poop even, you know, how's it all working, and then you get to, you know, look at the grass, how's it responding. So if you're just observing all the time, you're always learning and seeing, you know, and every year's different. Sometimes it's dry, and it's a dry spring, it's a wet spring, you know, and so I feel like you're always learning, but usually if you're just engaged, you're gonna learn all the time. You're gonna learn within a year. You'll know a lot, you know, even in 2 years, you know. Get to know your farm.
I mean, obviously, you're gonna make the most mistakes in the first couple of years, but you learn from those mistakes, and you know, every year you figure out what did or didn't go well, you know, and how you're gonna do it better next year.
I would, I would say I'll let you know. Well, a funny story. I was just looking at Dave Asbury, and he knew somebody that I knew was Dick Tanaka, and Dick Tanaka probably knew more about farming than everybody in this room combined. And I talked to him one day, pretty close to his death. I don't know how old he was, and he, you know, he was telling me about something he'd learned today, and he was kind of excited to tell me. And he was, I don't know how old he was, in his 80s, and I mean, nobody knew more about farming here than Dick Tanaka by like a long shot. And he was super excited to tell me this thing that he learned. And so, no, I don't know. I would say, you know, you obviously do make a lot of mistakes at first, and you do a lot of dumb things, and think, well, that's not doing that again. But I think that's the beauty of farming in general is, you know, you're not going to get bored.
Zach.
No.
So, Jason, does the sheriff have your phone number on speed dial with having temporary electric fences around the county?
I do, yes, I do have a friendship with her. No, you know what, we have not had too many problems. We don't use, the fence picture that I showed is not fence we use for perimeter, but we do, we have a fencing, I can't remember where we bought them, but they go on rebar, so we'll put wood posts in corners, and then we'll put T-posts and then rebar in between, and we'll usually do like 2 high tensile wires, and so you can do it quick. I mean, we can put it up really fast, but it's 2 wire and it's pretty good, and we don't usually have calves. If you have little calves, you know, if you're interior fencing, your calves get out all the time, but it doesn't really matter, you just leave it out. But I would be nervous about calves in that kind of scenario. But with the cows, I mean, you know this probably as well as anybody, but the best fence is to make sure they've got feed. When they start running out of feed, they will let you know, and then we'll push through any fence you'll ever build.
Food, sex, and fear.
Yeah. You keep them, you know, full of food. They're okay. And we've had that where we start looking at corn stalks, like, they are looking pretty hard to get across the fence. But honestly, I think last year we got 2 or 3 cows out once, so it really wasn't an issue. And the other thing that, I mean, with a lot of cows, you'll just get a couple crazies, and the best thing to do is just haul them out. You know, take them back to a farm that has a permanent fence. If you got one that decides she likes to get out, just, you know, move on.
Okay, thanks so much to our great producers and great